are 23 diners in the room, 12 tables, one empty chair at table 9 in the corner where the candle burns a little brighter than the rest. The string quartet is playing the second movement of a piece I cannot name. The sommelier is uncorking a 2009 Barolo for table 4. My runner is balancing 2 amuse-bouches on a slate the size of a paperback book. Everything is exactly as it should be. And then, together, every diner takes a bite. I am watching this from the pass. My hand is bandaged. The bandage is throbbing in time with the chewing. The empty plate at table 9 is empty because he liked it. My name is the 11th name in the book. The book goes back to 1943. This is my first Friday. Let me start at the beginning. I have worked at this restaurant for 6 years. I came in as a line cook out of culinary school. I was 24. I had 2 stages on my resume and a small loan to repay, and a girlfriend who would, 2 years later, decide she could not be married to a man who came home at 1 in the morning smelling of brown butter. I made entremets, then sauces. Then I was on the fish station for 2 years. Then I was sous. And then last spring the head chef walked into the office at the end of a Tuesday service and never came out. They told us he had taken early retirement. They gave me his apron the next morning. The collar bar was warm. He had only set it down an hour before. The restaurant is in the city. I will not say which city. If you have eaten there, you already know. We have been called the best in our region every year since 1947. We have a single Michelin star we have held for 51 consecutive years, which is statistically almost impossible. Stars come and go. Chefs come and go. Whole cuisines move in and out of fashion across decades. We have not moved. The menu rotates seasonally. The vegetables change with the weather. The fish change with the migrations. But the spine of the menu has been the same since the founder wrote it. Bone consomme. Halibut with brown butter. Duck with cherry. The Pinot. The cheese. The dark chocolate. The architecture of the night has not been touched in 83 years. There are rules at the restaurant. Rule 1, the chef tastes everything. Every sauce, every reduction, every plate that goes out at Friday service. Especially Friday. Rule 2, the reservation book is sacred. We do not discuss the reservations on the phone. We do not photograph the book. The first page is the founder's page, and we do not touch the first page. Rule 3, table 9 is permanently held on Fridays, 8 p.m. Mr. Velasquez, tasting menu, prepaid in cash in advance, in an envelope that arrives by hand on the first Monday of every month. The envelope is delivered, the owner told me, by a courier none of us has ever seen twice. The bills inside are crisp but slightly old-fashioned, the way bills look when they have been kept somewhere clean and dry for a long time. The amount has not changed since 1971. Inflation does not, apparently, apply to Mr. Velasquez. I asked the owner on my first day as head who Mr. Velasquez was. The owner smiled at me the way an uncle smiles at a child who has asked something he himself stopped asking when he was 20. He told me Mr. Velasquez kept the restaurant the best in the city. He told me Mr. Velasquez had standards. He told me to plate the Friday tasting with the same care I would plate it for a critic, more. The tasting was, he said, the entire reason the restaurant existed. The Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday services, the weddings upstairs, the anniversaries, the proposals at table 7, the businessmen on table 4, all of it, every other meal we served was in some quiet way in service of Friday. Friday was the meal that mattered. Friday was the meal that was being judged. He did not tell me what Mr. Velasquez ate. He did not tell me how Mr. Velasquez chewed. He told me the rest one Friday at a time. The first Friday I worked as head chef, I plated the tasting menu for table 9 myself. 6 courses. An amuse-bouche of cured trout and creme fraiche, a consomme of roasted bone with forest mushroom, a halibut with brown butter and capers, a duck breast with cherry gastrique, a small cheese course, a dessert of dark chocolate ganache and sea salt. I tasted every component. I plated each one with the kind of attention you reserve for the people who can end your career with a sentence. I had read in the trade press that 2 food critics from a national magazine had eaten in the dining room the previous spring without telling us in advance. I assumed Mr. Velasquez was that kind of guest. A man with a notebook. A man with a column. A man whose opinion had teeth. I was wrong about almost all of it. The runner took the first course out at 8:02 p.m. He came back without it. He did not look at me. I asked the runner how the guest had received the dish. He said he didn't. I asked him to repeat that. He said the same thing, more quietly. He didn't. He was not at the table. I stepped out of the kitchen. I stepped to the edge of the dining room where the host stand blocks the view, and I looked at table 9. I watched the cured trout disappear from the plate. Bite by bite. There was no fork. There was no hand. The cream eased itself away from the side of the plate, and the trout was not eaten so much as gradually no longer there. I did not finish watching. I went back to the kitchen. I plated the second course. The senior staff did not look at me when I came back. The expediter, 20 years there, kept his eyes on the tickets. The pastry chef, 18 years, kept her eyes on her work. The sommelier, who had been there longer than anyone except the owner, brought up a bottle from the cellar without a word and walked it to table 4. I do not think any of them had told me, on purpose, that this would happen on my first Friday. I had asked, in the days leading up, what does Mr. Velasquez look like? What does he like? What do I need to know? And the senior staff had each found a way to be busy, to be elsewhere, to be very interested in something on a clipboard. The pastry chef had said eventually only this: cook clean, don't substitute. Tell the truth on your tickets. He notices. I think they knew that telling me would not have helped. I think they had each had a Friday like this. I think on their Fridays no one had told them either, because there was no version of being told that made the next plate easier to lift. I sent out the consomme. I watched the second course not be eaten. I made it to dessert. The mistake came on the 11th Friday. I had grown not comfortable. You do not grow comfortable. I had grown rehearsed. I had learned to look at the dish at table 9 and see the meniscus pull back from the rim, and I had learned to keep plating. I had learned to hear the soft, synchronized chewing rise and fall through the dining room and to keep plating. I had learned to call tickets in a voice that did not shake. I had stopped, somewhere around Friday 7 or Friday 8, looking at the dining room from the pass between courses. There is a kind of survival in not looking. There is a kind of survival in trusting that the room will do what it does and that the dish will be cleaned, and that whatever was happening in the air around table 9 was not quite my problem. My problem was the next plate. My problem was always the next plate. The mistake was the wine. We had a Pinot for the duck. We had paired it with the duck for 40 years. The owner had told me, on my first Friday as head, that the pairing was non-negotiable. The Pinot, not the Syrah, never the Syrah. The sommelier had run out of the Pinot. We had a wedding upstairs that had taken the last 3 bottles in the back-of-house cooler. He came to the kitchen. He asked me quietly if he could substitute the Syrah for table 9. I said yes. I said yes because I did not, in that moment, remember why the Pinot was non-negotiable. I said yes because the Syrah was a beautiful wine, a 2014 from a small vineyard on the South Slope, the kind of bottle a sommelier brings up with both hands. I said yes because I was 11 Fridays in, and I had begun, against my will, to believe that the rituals I had been taught were old men's rituals, and that the dining room would chew and swallow and the plates would clean themselves whether the wine was right or not. I said yes because the part of me that had grown rehearsed, the part of me that had stopped looking, had also, somewhere in that rehearsal, stopped believing. The room corrected me immediately. The chatter stopped, and then they spoke. The string quartet had lowered their bows. The quartet's mouths were moving too. The quartet was speaking the sentence. So was the runner, halfway across the floor with a tray in his hands. So was the host at the host stand. So when I looked was my own pastry chef, 2 stations down from me at the line, her hands still working a sugar cage, her lips moving in the rhythm of a voice that was not hers. My bandaged hand, the bandage from a small kitchen accident 2 weeks earlier, a clean cut across the back of the knuckle from a paring knife I had set down badly, began to throb, not in pain, in rhythm, with the room. The throb came up through the bone and into the wrist and stopped at the elbow, and the elbow, when I looked, was steady. Only the bandaged hand, only the part of me that had already, in some small way, been opened. I told the sommelier to bring a Pinot from the private cellar. There was 1 bottle, kept for emergencies, kept locked. He went. He came back. He poured. I went back to the kitchen. The owner was waiting at the pass. He told me what an apology dish was. He told me what would go on it. The apology dish has 28 ingredients. 27 of them are easy. Saffron, a reduction of the night's stock, a leaf of microsorrel, a single cured anchovy, deboned by hand, a grain of fleur de sel from a specific region. The list reads for the first 27 ingredients like a tasting menu in miniature. Small, perfect, almost beautiful. The 28th is the chef's, the owner explained. He explained that Mr. Velasquez had standards, that a wrong wine was a small mistake, a mistake the early chefs would have paid for far more dearly. He explained that across 83 years and 11 head chefs, the recompense had been refined. The first chef had paid in pints. The fourth, the owner said, had paid in larger pieces. By now, the owner said, by now we had learned. By now the recompense was small, proportionate, clean. He told me, gently, the way you tell a child a fact about the world that the child should already know, that the recompense was not punishment, it was correction. Mr. Velasquez was a chef. Mr. Velasquez had been a chef before he was anything else. And chefs, the owner said, do not punish their cooks. They correct them. The correction had to be physical, because Mr. Velasquez no longer had a body of his own to feel through. The correction had to come from the chef's body, because the chef's body was the body that had made the mistake, the hand that had said yes to the sirah, the mouth that had not tasted the difference. He explained that the chef chooses. He told me the choice was mine. He told me there were chefs in the book who had chosen wisely. There were chefs in the book who had not. He told me the wise chefs had given small pieces, the tip of an earlobe, a sliver of a fingernail bed, a small notch from the side of the smallest finger. He told me those chefs had cooked for 40 years and left the kitchen with most of themselves. He told me the unwise chefs had tried to substitute. He told me that one chef in the 1960s had tried to give a piece of the dishwasher's hand instead of his own. He told me the dish had been rejected. He told me the recompense had doubled. He told me the chef had paid for 2 mistakes that night and the dishwasher had paid for 1, and neither of them had ever been the same. He told me Mr. Velasquez always knew. The chef in the 1960s, the owner said, had been a clever man. He had taken the dishwasher's piece while the dishwasher was unconscious from a small dose of something in his coffee. He had cleaned the wound, sutured it himself, and plated the offering with the same care he would have plated his own. The dish had gone out. The dish had been set down. The dining room had not eaten in unison. The dining room had stood up. 23 diners, standing at their tables, silent for 4 full minutes, looking at the kitchen, and then they had all at once sat back down, and they had all at once lifted their forks. And the chef had paid 2 recompenses that night, one for the wine and one for the dishwasher, and the dishwasher, who had woken up in the alley behind the restaurant with one hand wrapped in a towel, had paid 1, and the dishwasher had not come back. And the chef had cooked, the owner said, for 4 more years and had retired with very little of his left hand left. I asked the owner if the dishwasher's family was in the building tonight. The dishwasher had a wife, 2 daughters, 8 and 10. They sometimes came in at the end of service to walk her home. They were small girls. They wore matching coats. The older one had told me once that her mother said I was a good boss. I had laughed. I had said her mother was easy to please. I asked the owner if anyone would notice if I asked the dishwasher to stay late, if I asked her to clean a specific corner of the prep kitchen alone after the line had gone home, if I gave her a glass of wine while she did it. If the choice the chef in the 1960s had made was, on paper, a choice that had worked, the dishwasher had survived, the chef had survived, and the only thing that had failed was the offering itself, which Mr. Velasquez had detected and rejected. I asked the owner if there was a way to make the offering not be detected. The owner did not say yes. He did not say no. He looked at me for a long, kind moment, and then he said very softly that the choice was always between yourself and someone else, and that the chefs who chose someone else were not chefs anymore, even if they kept their fingers. He said it the way he had said everything else that night, without pressure, without judgment, with the calm of a man who had watched 11 cooks make this exact choice and had a private opinion about which way they would go, and was, every time, prepared to be surprised. He said, "It is your kitchen, it is your dining room, it is your dishwasher." He said, "I will leave the office now. The offering is due in 8 minutes," and he left. I thought about the dishwasher. Her name was Maria. Her older daughter's name was Anna. Her younger daughter, who liked to sit on an upturned crate at the end of service and eat the staff meal with a serious, thoughtful expression, was named for a saint I could never remember. I thought about the way the chef in the 1960s must have rationalized it. I thought about how easy it would have been. I thought about the way the dining room had stood up. I thought about what a room of 23 people standing in silence for 4 minutes would have sounded like, that absence of sound, that held breath, that quiet refusal, and I thought about whether I could cook through that every Friday for the rest of my career, knowing the room could do it again. I could not. I picked up the knife. I plated the apology dish myself. I handed it to the runner. I told him to set it down at table 9 and back away. I bandaged my left hand. I went back to the pass. I called the next ticket. The room sighed. The dish at table 9 cleaned itself, slowly, the way a sauce slowly disappears from the side of a plate. The sommelier, white-faced, brought me a glass of water. I had 8 more courses to send out. I sent them all. The owner came back to the kitchen at 11:30. He did not say anything for a while. He stood at the pass with his hands behind his back and watched the line cooks scrub the stations. Then he tilted his head, very slightly, and walked toward the office. He did not turn around to see if I was following. He did not need to. He took down the oldest book. The first chef in the book is the founder. The book is the original ledger. Cream-colored paper, marbled end papers, a fountain pen kept in a slot inside the cover. The handwriting on the first page is, the owner told me, the founder's own. The lines are precise. The signature at the bottom is small and economical. It is the handwriting of a man who knew exactly what he was building and exactly how long it would last. The owner turned the page. He told me the story. He told me Mr. Velasquez had opened the restaurant in the late 30s, that by 1942 he was the most talked about chef in the city, that he had a competitor across the street, a man whose restaurant was always second best, a man who watched the queue outside Velasquez's door every night and could not bear it. He told me that on a Friday in November of 1943, the competitor paid a busboy to put something into the staff meal, into Velasquez's plate specifically. That the busboy did. That Velasquez ate the staff meal at the staff meal table at 5:30 p.m. That at 6 p.m. Velasquez tasted the night's sauces. That at 6:40 he stood up from the tasting table and did not sit back down. He told me Velasquez did not die. The toxin in the staff meal had been calibrated, the owner said, to be untraceable in the body and lethal within 4 hours. The competitor had checked the math twice. The competitor had paid the busboy and gone home and gone to bed and waited for the morning paper. The morning paper had run a small notice in the food section congratulating the restaurant on the upcoming Saturday menu. The competitor had read it twice. The competitor, the owner said, had stayed up the next 3 nights waiting for an obituary that did not come, and had gone, on the 4th day, to eat at the restaurant himself. The competitor had ordered the duck. The competitor had taken 1 bite. The competitor had stood up, together with everyone else in the room, and had not, the owner said, eaten in any other restaurant for the rest of his short and unhappy life. He told me Velasquez ascended. That word, ascended. He told me it the way the early chefs had told him, the way their owners had told them. He told me the staff that Friday night had watched a man who should have been dying go very still at the tasting table, and then very still in his office, and then go entirely. And then they had watched the dining room that night eat in unison. He told me the dining room had been eating in unison ever since. He turned to the back of the book. He showed me the same chefs in their last year. He turned to the most recent page. He told me my predecessor had not died. He told me my predecessor had retired to a small house outside the city, a converted gardener's cottage near a river, 20 minutes by train from the central station. He told me he sent a card every Christmas. He told me the card was always shorter than the year before. The first year, it had been a paragraph. The most recent, the owner said, had been 3 words. He did not tell me what the 3 words were. He did not need to. I asked him what Mr. Velasquez was now. The owner thought about it for a long time. I asked him if he had ever paid the recompense himself. He put his right hand on my shoulder, very lightly, the way an uncle would, and then he left the office. And I sat with the book a while longer, and I read every name in it, 11 names, including mine, penciled in at the bottom, already added, recompense paid, service continued. I survived Friday's tasting. There is no other word for it. I did not master it. I did not understand it. I did not, in any meaningful sense, accept it. I survived it the way you survive a long surgery, by going still and breathing slowly and trusting that the people in the room with you knew, more or less, what they were doing. I did not, on the way home, look at my left hand. I kept it in my coat pocket. The bandage, the new bandage, was clean and small and did not throb anymore. The throbbing had stopped at the moment the runner had set the dish down at table 9, and the room had sighed. I went home. I slept 11 hours. I dreamed of nothing, which was, in itself, a kind of mercy. I went back to work on Tuesday. Tuesday was easy. Wednesday was easy. Thursday was almost a pleasure. The restaurant on a Thursday is a beautiful place. People come in for anniversaries. They come in to propose. They come in because they have heard for 50 years that this is the best room in the city. And they sit in it, and they drink wine that costs a week of their salary. And they look at each other, and the kitchen feeds them, and they leave happy. On Thursdays, the candle at table 9 is not lit. The chair at table 9 is, if a couple has requested a romantic corner, occupied. The dishes that come out of the kitchen are eaten in the ordinary way by ordinary mouths at ordinary speeds. Some of the diners chew with their mouths open. Some of them complain about the salt. Some of them send the duck back. Thursday is, in this sense, the most beautiful service of the week, because it is the only one where the dining room is allowed to be slightly wrong. On Thursdays, table 9 is just a table. I closed Thursday at 11. I did the books with the Sioux. I prepped Friday's tasting menu. I tasted every component twice. I checked the cellar for the Pinot. There were 9 bottles. I told the sommelier, by name, not to substitute. He nodded. He did not ask why. I think he had heard. Friday at 8 p.m., Mr. Velasquez did not arrive. He never does. The chair at table 9 stayed empty. The dish went out. The dish was cleaned. The dining room ate in unison. This Friday, I did not make a mistake. At the end of the second course, the dining room paused. Every diner, every glass, every face turned in unison toward the kitchen. The quartet lowered their bows. The host at the host stands stilled. I bowed my head. I bowed it the way the owner had told me to. The dining room sighed and resumed its meal. The quartet resumed. The runner moved. The next reservation was already in the book. It is always already in the book. I am the 11th chef. I have paid 1 recompense. I have, at the rate the older chefs paid, perhaps 30 more years to give. Small pieces, proportionate, clean. The owner says I will retire with most of myself. The owner sends a card every Christmas. The cards, he tells me, are getting shorter every year. Maria still works in the dish pit. Her older daughter Anna came in last week with a school project about restaurants. I let her stand at the pass for 10 minutes during prep. I showed her how to call a ticket. She used the right voice. She did not flinch at the heat. I told her, at the end, that she had the hands for it. Her mother gave me a look from across the kitchen, half thank you, half please don't, and I nodded, and I did not say anything else. There is, I think, a version of this story where Anna is the 12th chef. There is a version where she is not. The choice, the owner would say, is not mine to make. The book is the book. If you eat at this restaurant on a Friday, I want you to know something. When the room goes still around you, when you find yourself, mid-conversation, lifting your fork at the same instant as everyone else, when you taste, on the back of your tongue, a flavor from a plate that is not yours, a plate 3 tables away, a plate at the empty corner table, that is him. He is tasting through you. He has been refining his palate since 1943. He says hello. If this is your first time at this table, subscribe and turn on notifications. I narrate stories like this one every week, the kind of stories that make you look twice at the empty chair in the corner. If you want more, the next one is already plated. The reservation is already in the book. Take care of your hands.